public artist here in Charlottesville.
Oh, okay.
And some people want to know, what's a public artist? Well, a public artist is somebody who may come to the Heritage Center and try to discover what's going on here, and I was wondering if I could have 5 minutes of your time.
Sure.
Since you are the director?
Yes.
Okay. What a surprise.
Do www.mailchimp.com.
So I'm Robin Hoffman, and you
Hi,
are?
Robin. I'm Andrea Douglas.
Oh.
Nice to meet you.
So what a surprise. I just came up here and there you were already for me. Is that usual? I mean, do you have like all this time to do an interview with somebody?
Well, we generally have an open door policy because we are an exhibition space. Sometimes people come in here and they look around and they wonder what's going on, and because there's no clear sense of exactly what we do, because a lot of our events are in the evening, I keep my door open so that if someone has a question to ask, there's someone available to ask that question.
Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful room, auditorium. It's inviting. And did somebody design this for you, or was it sort of in place with the idea of you? Or
this is the 1926 portion of the Jefferson School. It's the most historic portion of the building. And our purpose here is to educate the community about the history of the African American community in Charlottesville. And what we're working on is a permanent exhibition that tells the history of the school from 1865 to about 1970. We'll take a big jump and then talk about how this project came to be. But we're on the historic registry, and so we have to comply with certain regulations, which means that this auditorium essentially looks exactly as it did in 1926. These are the original floors, those are the original doors, and but it has been updated. So you're standing in a complete surround sound auditorium.
I noticed the state-of-the-art acoustic panels and the lights and also the wiring and things like that, but it's done so nicely. It's done so authentic.
That's one of the trademarks of the building, actually, that the architects worked very hard to work within those guidelines, and therefore it's pretty much in each of the tenant spaces, and there are 9 other people who occupy the building. In all of the spaces, there's a very nice marriage between the old and the new. In the areas where they were able to perforate through walls, they have to do it in a way that allows people to understand that even though it's being used differently, it was once a classroom. And there are very many of the original details of that fact in the spaces.
Now, I know you from the museum. I know how genius you are, and also that your education we're so lucky to have you here in Charlottesville. But I'm wondering, how did they capture you here, or what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, I first started working with this project when I was at the museum. It was about 2008, and I was still the curator there, and I was on the board. But as the project grew and we began to talk about the exhibition and we began to talk about what this space was going to be, it was clear that someone needed to take hold of that and make it happen. We really are a space that wants to do, as we say, our mission is to talk about the African American community, but it also talks about the production of African diaspora people. And so the way in which we operate is that on the one hand, we want to, in our exhibition, create a seamless relationship between something at Monticello and here, since we kind of answer that question, what happened to the black people when they left the plantation? They came down into Charlottesville proper and created a community. But at the other half of that is, how do you create cultural diversity and cultural equity, social equity? So we do lectures, we do film, we do, we're right in the middle on the last day of our hip hop film series. where we're going to look at tonight local film, but we've looked at hip hop in Turkey and China, in Ghana. Last night we were looking at the Sugar Hill Gang and their issues, you know.
Well, I have to say, in my experience, I'm from New York, and I'm thankful that I had my education at Brooklyn College and NYU because I was able to understand a lot more about our planet, the way people evolved over time. And one of the things is, especially now, when we have people who are soldiers and warriors and people who are being excommunicated from their countries left and right and this and that, I think that what you're doing here is a learning tool, because how do people survive, and then how did also people survive with the arts too? I mean, I think that is a very big component why people survive, and that they're including it in Montessori schools, and now UVA is with the science department, engineering. Everybody's realizing, I think, that people are human to begin with, and that we all survive because of maybe the arts and our culture. And so what you're doing is so important, but then to have you here is like so special and so good.
Thank you. I mean, I've made art, my whole life is about pretty things. I have the opportunity to spend most of my time thinking interesting things and talking to interesting people and looking at really interesting things. So it's my desire to provide a space where that's possible for other people. We hope to create the respite, the place where you can come in and sit and see an exhibition that either causes you to be emotionally involved or just allows you to have a meditative moment. Those are the things that art has always done for me. And with respect to the way in which we educate, it is the idea that, you know, there is production going on. There are people out there doing things, and we have the opportunity to explain that.
And I don't think everybody gets hip hop. I know I didn't. I didn't till, I would say, like 2003, no earlier, but the idea that it's actually poetry. It's an expression by which people can tell about their stories. And of course, some of them may seem loud, just like rock and roll did at some point. Some stories may seem a little violent, maybe even intrusive, and there's expletives and there's all sorts of things, but that's an expression. And sometimes we have to listen to that to sort of understand what it is that people are saying or whatever. And when I really got it was kind of like when I got Southern music when I was in Tennessee. And I actually sat in on some country music with the people that were making the country. And I said, oh, it's the same with hip hop. When I was in New York City, I actually met some of the musicians and the poets who were creating these images, you know, for really like almost a historical point of view. Because a lot of stuff that happens in life is very, unless we as artists can somehow put it together for people, they don't really understand that it's happening at that moment.
And it is poetry set to music. And, you know, if you think about pop songs and the way pop songs work, they don't have the visual texture that rap has. Rap has a very clear visual texture. You can very often listen to words and actually then close your eyes and see in a way that I think pop music causes you to have to add on additional information. But rap tends to be very precise in its language, and the thing that is interesting and that comes out in the films that we have been watching this week is that the reason why it can be a global language is that very fact, is that it is about poetry. It is about the ways in which people are able to articulate very meaningful ideas, you know, and sure, there's that popcorn element to it, there is that commercial element to it, but it is a political tool, it is a social tool, it is an and ultimately an economic tool for a lot of people. It gets them out of a negative economic system into another.
Which brings me to the point. How did this become the Heritage Center?
Well, that's a long story, and that's not 5 minutes worth of talking, but ultimately, the question was, what do you do with this building?
Yes.
This was, as I said, from 1865, the African American school, and continued in that way until 1951, and so holds the history. So in 2000, when the school board was thinking, what do we do with this building, the alumni, members of the community in Star Hill, parents whose kids had gone, who were in the 6th grade when the Jefferson School was the 6th grade for the city of Charlottesville, when it was truly an integrated space. All of these people came together at the library up on Market Street and had a public meeting and
This
said,
is Charlottesville. This is Charlottesville. It's why I still live in Charlottesville. It's why I bought a house recently in Charlottesville, because it's that people are doers. Like, they come up with an idea and they say this has to be done, and then they get together and they do it.
Yeah.
So, and you raise your son here.
Yeah.
And so this is something that makes you also want to develop a center like this as well, I guess, because this will become an institution for your son.
Yeah.
It's a legacy.
Yeah. Well, rather than there are people in this town. There's a set of people in this town who find everything that they need here, and there's a set of people in this town who have to leave this town in order to go find their cultural connections.
Right.
And I was one of those people, and my son is one of those people, but he lives here. And so we'd like to create a place where he can engage in a kind of certain activities that feed and inform him about who he is. I mean, he's part Jamaican, part French, but he truly is American, and he should have the access to the arts in the way he would if he lived other places.
Now,
I'm just facilitating one way. That's all.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's so necessary, and there's so many people that are benefiting from this. Now, one of the things I want to get to, because I'm taking a lot of your time, sorry, but it's that we don't have a Turkish center, we don't have a Russian center, we don't have like a real Spanish center. And do you think you're inspiring? Because where I came from in Brooklyn, we had a lot of centers, and we even had a Muslim center. We had one of the biggest populations of Muslims are in New Jersey, and they're American. And the reason why we're all American is because we have, hopefully, have not homogenized ourselves, and we are culturally adept. It doesn't happen in rural places so much, but we're a city in Charlottesville, and I'm just hopeful that this will continue. But what kind of programs do you have that beautiful stage over there is, I haven't come here because every time there's a program, I wanted to come here. I'm sorry, I'm really embarrassed. The problem has been that my schedule it's been all over the place, but now I'm a little more regular. I'm living right in the city, so I'm coming. So what kind of programs do you have here? Like, for instance, the other night you had you're having something this week, aren't you?
Yeah, the film series is this week.
Yes.
And that we're doing the last one tonight. And so, like I said, there is a hip hop performance here. There are two artists who are going to be performing after a conversation about what Charlottesville's hip hop scene looks like. Because some of us were like, there is one? Oh, all right. Tell us about that. So yeah. But we facilitate other people's programming, just as long as it's within line with the mission that we have articulated here. Our next things that are coming up, we've created something with the Young Black Professional Network called a watering hole, which is an opportunity for people to come together on First Friday and get to know each other. We had 90 people. Half of us were all like, wow, I've never seen this many black people in Charlottesville in a room in a long time. So we were very excited about that. But it's not just limited to people of color.
Right.
I mean, this is just the facilitator of that kind of connection. We're bringing a comedian in November on the 21st. I'm sorry, on the 12th. Then we're also going to have a conversation with a medical sociologist named Robert Brown, who's going to talk about the impact of economic stress on mental and physical health.
I need to go there. Let me find out exactly one date.
That's on the 21st. But what's interesting about this is that he's just written this book. But, you know, when you close the government,
Yes.
and, you know, not everyone who works for the government is at a low level, but, you know, you've got all kinds of people working there. But all of these people are not receiving checks.
So now, you know, this is a beautiful, beautiful venue. And I kind of equate it to being a museum almost, in the sense that it's a show place, but it's a gathering place. Not so much like the Paramount, not so much the Jefferson. The Jefferson Center here, you feel automatically that you're going to learn something. You're going to be introduced to a new idea. And I'm so happy to have you here. I just want to tell you that. And if we could just like walk around and maybe just look at some of the highlights of the stage, of the auditorium, and also the logistics or demographics of the why these rooms are here and all that.
Sure, let me just get keys.
Okay. So here we are, and we're with Andrea Douglas. I am so happy. You have no idea. I've been going to her curating in the museum, and she is a genius, so I'm so lucky.
So, for instance, this space here is being transformed to do something different. For the Delta Sigma Theta sorority is having their conference in Charlottesville, and so we're one of the spaces, and that's an African American sorority. I think it's about 400 attendees at this conference, and they're going to be tomorrow throughout the building, so we're getting this ready. But this space is typically our genealogy space. And so what we're trying to support and promote is the study of local history. And so we don't particularly have an archive, but we do have artifacts that we've collected because of preparation for the exhibition. And we also have oral histories. And we also have a very technologically savvy space. This is in a completely wireless space. And so what we can do for the community is provide a central location that is not the Historical Society, that's not UVA, that's not the library, where they can come and use the computers and do research. So Heritage Quest, ProQuest, those kinds of things. And then we are also planning programs around that. But for us, it's also the way to make history a living history. Taking advantage of the adjacencies, you've got a auditorium and a stage, and you've got a research center. So how do the two of them come together? Well, how that comes together is we are developing a playwright program and causing playwrights to come in and use this information and create new art forms.
Oh my goodness.
So that's
genius.
what makes us different.
This is absolutely genius. This is amazing.
Then over here we've got a temporary gallery. We do exhibitions of African American artists or work that describes African American people. And I think this is one of the kind of great examples.
Oh wow! Why wasn't I here like days and days and days ago? Look at this.
This is an exhibition by Kendall Messick, who lives in New Jersey, but his best friend Brenda Hunt is from a town called Corapeak, North Carolina, and it dates its history back to the 18th, 19th century. It's just over the Virginia border in the Dismal Swamp area. And so this is really an exhibition about memory and the way in which a community changes over time and what is left behind. The buildings, the remnants, those things that sort of point to life. But it's also about Brenda's memories as well, because often in the African American community, if you migrated to the city, you sent your children home to the South in the summers. And so it has this mythological feel in that way too. So the contemporary gallery allows us to engage again and marry the historical to the present day. You can come in ultimately when we finish the exhibition and see the Jefferson School's history, but then you can also then take another step over. Since we opened this gallery, we've had Jefferson Pinder, who's one of the leading African American video artists in the country. We did a show of Caesar Morton, who is an amazing local artist, whose family's from Charlottesville, went to high school and in town, and half of the people who know him didn't know that he could make the work that he makes. So, and then, you know, again, because we're on the historical registry, that's the original sink.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
These are the original wood accoutrements, you know, details. So again, this is the original floor. When they came in, they found tile floor, and they took it all up, and they found floors that were intact and in good shape. Some of it needed to be restored. You can see in some areas they put in some filler, but primarily good bones.
Makes sense. I mean, a historical, retrospective, and then you have the feeling of people who actually experienced this room. Oh my goodness, send chills up my spine.
Yeah. And we have a full program, you know, and we have the ability to do sculpture shows, painting, works on paper, and video, because as I say, that's what we started out with.
It's such a rich collection of photography. It's just wonderful. Thank you.
Our goal ultimately is to become an art school, and so we planned for that. So with classrooms like this, right now we're using them as meeting spaces so that other people can come and have meetings. We're right down in the middle of town, right on the bus line, and ample parking. So if you're a community organization or a business and you need to have a meeting, this is how we generate our earned income.
And I'm sorry, I'm from Brooklyn College, and we had the same architecture. And there's something about the sort of organic feeling of the windows, and then being able to see out so much, and the light, and in a learning process, I think it really helped me.
Well, also too, the best thing about this city center is, you know, is this sort of intergenerational feel to it. So right below us is the child care center for the Y.
Right,
so
that's right.
There's something really human about being at a meeting and listening to the kids, because they are having a great time. They're out there screaming their lungs out, and it makes them.
It's a true community where we're so used to taking like the nursing homes and the schools and the doggy houses, and we're putting them all in different areas, and here you are including a school, a museum, and a place to have stage production, and it's awesome. We're so lucky. And then you're the director. I mean bonus everything, that you actually have this conceptual idea of how communities work the best, and then we have the genius of you to be able to sort of give us that direction. That's really cool.
You flatter me.
No.
You do. I just think that it wasn't, all I'm doing is implementing ideas that others have had, and doing it in a way that is, that uses the experiences that I've had. And also trying to honor what this place was. I mean, the Jefferson School produced scholars. The Jefferson School embodied aspirations in ways that no other, that rivals. There's none more aspirational than this place. The idea that you could have a school in 1865, that's 4 months after emancipation, and it continued. And as you walk this building, it's 3 acres long. There's no other school in the city of Charlottesville that has ever been added on to, and this one was. And when you look out the windows, you see the neighborhood. And the question is, what was given up in order to add on? Was it someone's home? Was it some aspect of the community? But when you look at the Jefferson School story, it's every part of it is aspirational. When they didn't have education past the 7th grade, they petitioned for the high school. Before getting the high school, they sent their kids away to places so that they could get the education and then come back and teach here. When massive resistance occurs, and it's the Jefferson School and the Jackson Burley students who cause integration to occur here. So
we all can learn from people who are achieving something, not miraculously, but because of their own drive and their own inspiration from the school now. And
that's our goal.
And if we didn't have that, we would probably, a lot of us, not have an example and a place to really learn from that, and probably be back in the 1800s somewhere in how we cultivate ourselves as a civilization. So I just want to say to you, thank you so much for allowing us to come here.
You're welcome.
And we do this for the benefit of the free clinic. My program is also community centered. We are going throughout the building today, and we're going to interview others who are doing wonderful initiatives for our community.
Yeah, wonderful.
And so, but we honor you and thank you so much, and hope that we can come back in 6 months and do another interview, even though and hear all the things that you've done with all the school and
Sure.
and so forth, and also go see your new exhibit, I guess. How often do you change that up?
Well, we changed this. We have more of a museum schedule than a gallery schedule. So we only change 4 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well, that's nice, because I like to sit and sometimes draw myself photographs and look at images and learn from the lighting and the contrast, and it's just a beautiful thing what you have here, and thank you so much.
thank you.
And that's a wrap.